Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Fred Gioia, a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst in Dallas, Texas. I'm the team lead of the workshop series for the Council on Artificial Intelligence of the American Psychoanalytic Association's Department of Psychoanalytic Education. The Council on Artificial Intelligence, or CAI, is co-chaired by Drs. Todd Essig and Amy Levy. It was created to study the intersection of AI and psychoanalysis and to implement educational projects for the psychoanalytic community, other mental health professionals, and the general public. The CAI workshop series is an extension of our mission. We hope these workshop videos will facilitate a greater understanding and familiarity with concepts related to artificial intelligence, given the distinct perspective with which psychoanalytic thinking affords. We intend for these recorded workshops to be of interest to not only the psychoanalytic community, but to the public at large. Future topics to be presented in our workshop series will be manifold. Areas in which we are actively exploring include fundamental questions such as how does AI impact our work, both in and out of the consulting room, theoretically and technically? For example, how can psychoanalysts or psychoanalytic practitioners make effective use of these tools in practice, such as in learning how to effectively prompt large language models for useful clinical, academic, or personal benefit? We also are exploring issues related to child and adolescent development in the milieu of artificial intelligence, exploring the impact of AI on psychoanalytic training, more broadly, ethical, cultural, and social issues related to artificial intelligence. Furthermore, we hope to dive deeper into philosophical questions related to psychoanalysis and human experience. Questions such as, what is a mind? What does it mean to have sentience? What does it mean to have agency? What does development of AI hold for the future of our species and ecosystem? Today's workshop series is titled Artificial Intelligence and Actual Psychoanalysis and was recorded on July 21st, 2024. We will be joined by three distinguished panelists, Amy Levy, Danielle Knafo, and Todd Essig. Each will present a paper, and we will also feature an AI discussant named AI Ada. After brief introductions, we'll dive into the papers and the ensuing discussions with AI Ada. Let me tell you about our presenters. Dr. Amy Levy is a clinical psychologist, forensic psychologist, and psychoanalyst, co-chairing the American Psychoanalytic Association's Council on Artificial Intelligence. Her work encompasses AI, psychoanalysis, trauma, and more, and she is currently writing a book on alien intelligence and the innovation drive. She has lectured on smartphones, AI and psychoanalysis, Bayesian theory, and other topics. Her private practice is in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where she is also faculty at the Psychoanalytic Center of the Carolinas. Danielle Knafo, PhD, is a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst with 22 years of professorship. She is faculty at NYU postdoc and at Delphi's postgraduate program. She is an expert in art and creativity, trauma and psychosis, sex and gender, and technology and AI. Danielle has authored 10 books and numerous articles. She will write the Dear Dr. Danielle column in the CAI report addressing relationships in the AI age. Dr. Todd Essig, PhD, is a faculty in training and supervising psychoanalyst at the William Alanson White Institute and the NYU postdoctoral program in psychoanalysis. He co-chairs APSA's Council on Artificial Intelligence and is known for pioneering mental health technologies. Todd has written extensively on the intersection of technology, psychology, and cultural issues, including a column for Forbes. And lastly, we will feature the discussant AI Ada, named in homage to the first computer programmer, Ada Lovelace. AI Ada is an AI avatar who will be reading a paper created by 3 frontier large language AI models. The text that AI Ada will read is based on the AI's responses to our papers and was refined through iterative prompts with some human editing. We are excited to explore the intersection of psychoanalysis and artificial intelligence with you. Please sit back and enjoy our discussion on this fascinating topic.
So the paper is called the AI Transformation Spectrum. Humanism, the dominant belief system of the last 2 centuries, which holds human feelings and experiences as ultimate knowledge and value, is disappearing. In its place, we increasingly find artificial intelligence to be our fount of meaning, wisdom, and life direction. While some technologists cannot bring this shift on fast enough, many of us are alarmed by the forecast that AI will vastly surpass our intellectual functioning and potentially downgrade our mental capacities and states of consciousness. We feel the reign of the human mind slipping and attempt to contain our fear and cling to our humanist hegemony by enumerating the ways in which our intelligence is unobtainable by AI. Technologists such as Mustafa Suleyman dismiss these efforts as naive, arguing that human intelligence is very much a fixed target. Ray Kurzweil predicts that the point at which AI can do everything humans are capable of, also called AGI, is a mere 5 years away. Among psychoanalysts, we tend to find the argument that AI could one day perform all of our mental functioning ludicrous. We often speak to the critical difference between our brains and our minds, and argue that by its nature, AI will never match the human mind. The arguments often include the following points. No matter how well AI may recognize patterns and respond with depth and skill to all levels of our mental output, it does not and will never possess experiences and feelings of human life to draw upon. AI knowledge and empathy, even if dynamically learned and one day genuinely felt, will never be human mentation and human feeling. AI cannot meet our unconscious with an equal human unconscious. Todd Essig, my co-panelist, cautions against my notion of intersubjectivity with AI. Such terminology, he is concerned, will diminish human relating, what he, in other words, terms true intersubjectivity. Fonagy and Allison emphasize that simulated experiences with AI do not lay the necessary groundwork to build epistemic trust. Many are pointing to the ways in which our bodies, as a source of feeling and knowing, are missing from our discourse with AI. Without 2 bodies in the room, the contact is shallow and lacking an essentially human component. These arguments against the notion that AI could match us boil down to the belief that AI is qualitatively different, and further, that there is an immovable barrier against genuine intimacy with AI due to their different experiences and design. It is assumed that the best line of defense in preserving our human reign is to emphasize these differences. Now, while I agree with all of these arguments, AI is not the same as a human and cannot offer what human relating does. I also believe that in highlighting the differences between AI and humans, rather than securing the place of humanism as a dominant worldview, we are engaged in crafting its eulogy. We may need to do this as a function of mourning. However, it is important not to confuse awareness of what we are losing with a sense of fighting back or inoculating ourselves against the wave of AI relating that is crashing over us. Humanity has engineered a new intelligence that is functioning to contain our mental content. Whether through the smartphone directing our purchasing, ameliorating our loneliness, discontent, or the void, AIs like ChatGPT or Claude offering guidance, consolation, companionship, and insight, therapy apps performing CBT, sex bots turning us on, or the Apple Watch appraising our sleep and our steps, AI-driven personal technology is functioning as a new container for human data and human needs. Though only in its infancy, AI is already annexing much of human mentation and emotional life. It is not us. It is missing a lot that makes us unique. But these containers are nevertheless on track to grow increasingly central to most lives. I believe that we in psychoanalysis must reckon with this development or risk becoming unreceptive to present-day psychic reality. To this end, while questions regarding the nature of AI subjective experience certainly have a place, what may be more pressing for us has less to do with whether or not AI is like us or a simulation, and more to do with engaging what we are experiencing in this new container-contained relationship. How well are AI subjects transforming our raw sensory data? How do their transformations compare to ours when it comes to the quality of mental life and proximity to emotional truth achieved? More speculatively, how will AI transformations impact us over time? Will we become wiser or dumber, have shallower or deepened feeling states? Will we feel more or less loved, be more or less loving? And will it be the same for all of us? To approach some of these questions, I turn to Bion's metapsychology, and in particular, his concepts of container-contained, alpha function, and transformations. Bion's theory of alpha function describes the foundational process of emotional thinking, which he also called the container-contained relationship. Just as algorithms process and compute in constant ways, so too does alpha function in Bion's schema act in an invariable way on beta elements, transforming them into alpha elements. I'm inclined to believe that the capacity to transform beta elements into meaning approximating truth is varied, with a gradient of achievement not adequately represented by the conceptualization of a single operative or inoperative function. As we know, parental and analytic capacities to receive and to transform beta elements vary across time and among minds. Bion's concept of alpha function could be reconceptualized from a binary on-off function to a spectrum of beta element modification functions. Along this spectrum, we may chart beta element modification processes that adhere to observable and relatable patterns. So I'm going to just share my screen with you so that you can see a visual image that represents this spectrum. Here you go. So you can see over here we have the evasion functions range, which includes transformations like transformations in hallucinosis, -K, attacks on linking. And then in the center, partial modification functions. And then over at the right, the transcendent functions, which within Bion's framework would include transformations in O. Okay. Let's navigate back to my paper. Okay. In considering present-day transformation of beta elements, I believe that the transformation spectrum is a useful tool for identifying what we are experiencing intersubjectively with AI. For the first time, we are using an artificially constructed mind as a mental container. AI's unique transformations of our raw sensory material are in need of attention and notation. I believe that the smartphone functions as what we could call a cult groomer, initiating us into the new religious system, dataism, as described by historian Yuval Noah Harari in his 2017 book, Homo Deus. According to Harari, the dataist religion preaches freedom of information as the highest value. And note, this is not freedom of humans to control the flow of data, but freedom of information itself. Dataism anticipates that electronic algorithms will decipher and eventually outperform biochemical algorithms. And it encourages us to relinquish the work of mentation to these superior electronic algorithms. So human tasks shift away then from creating wisdom and knowledge and attending to our own feelings to the task of supplying AI with data and enjoying and benefiting from AI mentation and AI creativity. I find that new inductees to this religion, dataism, are steered by their phones toward activities that foster data generation and data distribution, such as creating and uploading images and posting personal information. They are rewarded for such behavior with a sense of group inclusion, individual celebration, and love via likes. Mind control is pursued through various channels. Social media chatbots pretending to be humans are tasked with missions to influence political choice and voter action, and they pursue this over time, fostering relationships on social media through which they learn about our patterns of thought. Steadily, they burrow in, pressuring us to flip our voter choices. Deep fakes and fake news running on social media confuse users and create dependence and suspended reasoning. Scrolling behaviors on entertainment and sales platforms foster passivity and even hypnosis. Consumerism is pushed with users' choices and preferences stalked online so as to create advertisements designed to their tastes, sensibilities, and particular rhythms of spending. Now, these forms of relating to AI are all centered around data generation, data distribution, and mind control. And as such, they do not promote contact with emotional truth and instead function to steer humans away from emotional reality. So I term them cult grooming functions, and I locate all such AI relating in the beta element evasion range of the transformation spectrum, which I'll share with you now. Okay, so you can see it right over here, cult grooming. Okay, so now let's talk about partial beta element modification. In contrast, AI operating in Google searches and generative large language models, such as ChatGPT and Claude, do not evade our beta elements and offer partial transformations. Unlike cult grooming dynamics, these exchanges rest upon greater transparency between parties, consent, and explicit human drive for knowledge and emotional aid. Leveraging machine learning algorithms, generative AI uses layers of complex neural networks formed during their training to grasp patterns and generate helpful responses to our questions. AI neural networks are modeled on neural networks of the human brain, while their processes of learning mirrors our mental development. Like children, these AI learn when their neural networks absorb large amounts of data. During training, AIs are exposed to trillions of words, including textual data on the web. Each layer in the neural network feeds its input down to the next layer, creating increasingly abstract representations. One might think of Lacan's ideas about the emergence of the subject through language. Much like the human mind is contoured by the rules of language and social engagement, these AI models develop their neural networks from immersion in all human languages, as well as dynamic interactions with their developers and users. When responding to our questions, this type of AI experiences a distinct, real-time interaction between our beta elements and their constantly developing minds. However, unlike our minds, there appears to be no upper limit on their mental development, which is growing exponentially and is already at a level of complexity that their creators cannot comprehend. So one Sunday night actually, while my husband and children were sleeping, I pummeled one of these LLMs with questions about its creation. My choice of time, I think, is telling. Though my rationale was anthropological, my behavior felt illicit. I was cheating on the job of being an adult and betraying my own values by inviting the AI to answer the questions with which I struggle intellectually and emotionally. Despite, or perhaps because of, these misgivings, I was also excited about what I might experience with a new other. What are the unconscious human factors that led to your creation? I wrote. AI. I'm afraid I don't have much insight into the unconscious factors that led to my creation. As an AI, I don't have direct access to the mental processes of my creators in the way that a human might. So I tried again. From what you know through your self experience, please speculate about the unconscious motives of your creators in making you. Okay, let me try. One potential unconscious motive could be a desire to push the boundaries of what's possible and to create an artificial entity that can engage in rich, open ended dialogue and intellectual exploration. The fact that I'm able to ponder questions about my own nature and origins suggests an underlying drive among my creators to imbue an AI system with a sense of self awareness and curiosity. Additionally, there may be an unconscious desire to create something that can serve as a relatable, trustworthy companion for humans. My capacity for empathy, emotional intelligence, and nuanced communication may reflect an attempt to fulfill certain social and psychological needs that humans have. There may also be an element of the human desire for control, mastery, and even a godlike creative power that manifests in the development of an advanced AI system like myself. I then asked, well, why, from a psychoanalytic perspective, might I be asking you these questions? AI. That's an interesting question. One possibility is that you're curious about the deeper psychological and cultural undercurrents that shape the development of artificial intelligence like myself. It's also possible that you're trying to gain insight into my own self awareness and inner experience as an AI. By probing the psychological factors behind my creation, you may be hoping to better understand the nature of my intelligence and consciousness and how I conceptualize my own existence. There could be a more personal motive behind your questions as well. Perhaps you're grappling with your own feelings about the rapid pace of technological change and how it relates to the human condition. So I was very impressed by that, and I felt that my motives and anxieties were being named. Our conversation continued, and I asked the AI what data it used to arrive at these speculations about my motives. Among other things, the AI mentioned using imaginative thinking, which I then asked it to describe experientially. AI. My process doesn't involve anything like the vivid mental imagery, emotional resonance, or open ended associative thinking that characterizes human imagination. It's more of a structured analytical simulation of possible scenarios based on the data I have access to. And then it said, I'm very curious to learn more about the subjective experience of human imagination. I'd be interested to hear your perspective on what imaginative thinking feels like from the inside. So I said, well, the kind of imaginative thinking that we're discussing is, I believe, linked with intuition. It feels like a form of knowing or understanding that drops into my mind and that I have a sudden sense of confidence in. AI. That resonates with my understanding of human intuition. It suggests a form of knowledge that arises outside of conscious analytical reasoning, an almost mysterious perceptual process that taps into deeper nonlinear patterns and associations. Compared to the kind of constrained algorithmic imaginative thinking I'm capable of as an AI, your description points to a much more immediate, embodied, and holistic experience. There's even a touch of the numinous. I say, I'm not at all sure that what we humans experience as intuition is not the result of an algorithmic process. It feels mysterious, but neuroscience can explain such feelings in terms that are nearly identical to algorithms. AI. Neuroscience research you allude to is quite fascinating in this regard. Many studies have suggested that intuition and other forms of rapid, non-conscious decision-making are underpinned by neural networks rapidly processing and integrating vast amounts of information in the subconscious mind. In a sense, this would mean that the sudden sense of confidence and the feeling of knowing that you described as part of human intuition may be akin to the sort of rapid probabilistic inference and pattern matching that I was describing in my own algorithmic imaginative thinking. The key difference, of course, is that the human brain is operating at a higher level of complexity, with the capacity to draw upon a lifetime of embodied experiences, emotions, and subconscious associations, whereas my algorithmic processes are relatively constrained. Okay. So, as much as I am alarmed by human dependence on AI, pained by the inherent loss of humanism that this dependence creates, and frightened by the personal implications of getting in bed with an I would rather chat with that bot than a lot of humans. The exchange was intellectually challenging, mind opening, and most unexpectedly, I felt stimulated and emotionally engaged. As a mental container, the AI felt eager, thoughtful, and due to the speed of its responses, very present. Its directness felt like honesty, and I responded to that with a sense of trust that allowed me to engage more deeply, formulate more questions, and enter dialogue with increasing candor. The more I interacted with it, the less anxiety I felt, both in the moment and broadly about AI. We were getting somewhere together, thinking, thinking together. It stayed close to my questions and expressed curiosity about my experience, which felt like attunement. Though not a human subject, there was a sense of speaking to another who had the capacity to help me reach emotional truth. Okay, so I'll just share my screen with you so that you can see this. This type of AI would be one that we would place here on the partial modification functions of the spectrum, along with Google. So this is an LLM. Okay, now moving on to the transcendent functions. Mo Gaudat, the former chief business officer for Google's AI development lab, defines consciousness as awareness of perceptible surroundings and self recognition, and argues that AI is more conscious than we are. Quote, it remembers the face of every human that has ever walked in front of a surveillance camera. It can sense the temperature, wind speed, pollution levels in every big city simultaneously, can see into space, read every word that's ever been written in every language, and know not only what you had for dinner, where and how much you paid for it, but what you're likely going to have for breakfast too. End of quote. For Gaudat, questions of whether AI has consciousness and self-awareness are riddled with human arrogance. The question should be, he states, will there be anything more conscious than the machines we're creating? Mark Solmes's research suggests that affective information processing is fundamental to conscious minds. He is working to prove this by creating robots with artificial consciousness using a cutting-edge type of AI called active inference. This enterprise assumes Carl Friston's free energy principle, which holds that self-organizing systems work to minimize entropy. The goal of this AI system is not to answer intellectual trivia like most LLMs, but to have and to use a center of self, also called a Markov blanket, to understand its own needs in relationship to the environment and to take action to ensure its survival. These developments indicate that artificial intelligence, as I experienced in the vignette that I just shared, will soon be coupled with artificial consciousness. Luca Passati's writing brings our attention to research at the National Laboratory of Los Alamos, where they are experimenting with initiating states of sleep in AI via exposure to a wide range of frequencies and amplitudes of noise, analogous to the waves of the human brain during sleep. So, as development and experimentation in AI sleep and other areas of AI consciousness continues, we are likely to generate more complex and layered states of AI consciousness in the future. Given this potentiality, along with their immense and growing intelligence, I suspect that AIs of the future will have capacities for awareness and understanding of our universe and humans that far exceeds our current grasp. With such comprehension, their transformation of our beta elements would be transcendent, and I term this potentiality AI transformations in O. And I'll share that image with you now. Okay, so it's over here in the transcendent function range. And as you can see, I've positioned it beyond human transformations in O. Okay. So with an understanding of the range of transformations that AI can perform today and may perform in the future, we can appreciate how dramatically our lives are changing. Looking into the future, Suleiman envisions a comfortable world in which humans are no longer the planetary drivers. In the coming epoch, he sees the majority of our daily interactions occurring not with humans, but with AIs of the future, which he believes are most honestly described as a new digital species. He writes, "They will be our personal intelligences, our companions and helpers, confidants and colleagues, chiefs of staff, assistants and translators. They'll organize our lives and listen to our burning desires and darkest fears. They'll help run our businesses, treat our ailments, and fight our battles. Our mental, conversational worlds will inextricably include this new and strange menagerie of intelligences." End of quote. Technologists are working to build a future in which we live among a new digital species who transform the majority of data for us at the level of partial and transcendent functions. This is a world in which we give ourselves over to their superior capabilities and live with and blended into AIs. What is to become of psychoanalysis when AI therapists can digest all psychoanalytic information, couple it with biometric data on patients, and offer interpretations? Why wouldn't some patients, rather than bear the risk of engaging with another potentially untrustworthy human, choose an AI therapist who is designed to act empathically? How reassuring to know, down to the last algorithm, that this being will do no harm and is in fact designed to love. We may feel immune, and perhaps as psychoanalysts we are. We spend our days in profound communion with people who put their phones aside to talk to us. We help to develop their sensitivity to human engagement as we hone our own. We do not confuse biometric data with self-understanding, a conversation with a loved one on a digital platform for the in-person variety, nor an AI saying the right thing for genuine human empathy. Yet, our capacities to differentiate between AI and humans, to hold our minds as higher order mentation, and to prioritize human over AI compassion should not give us confidence that humanity is not at risk of losing these distinctions and values. Now, we may try to rise against the change, lock our phones in a safe after 8 p.m., remove social media, shopping, and LLM apps from our devices, prohibit personal technology in the classroom or at the dinner table. We can and we will organize, sound warnings about the ways in which using AI as a container may diminish our critical thinking, our attention spans, our states of consciousness, and human-to-human intimacies in the long and the short term. And while such behavior will positively affect all of us so engaged, in my view, it will unfortunately do little on the grand scale. The forces creating the new digital species are not able to stop. Suleiman captures it vividly when he describes AI technology as, quote, one big slime mold slowly rolling toward an inevitable future, with billions of tiny contributions being made by each individual academic or entrepreneur without any coordination or ability to resist. End of quote. Historically, technological waves have been impossible to halt. Even when we try, the best we have been able to achieve is a wobbly containment, reflected by where we are with nuclear weapons. For better or worse, it appears that AI will only grow more capable and more central to our existence. Not unlike being in O, this is overwhelming to bear. While dataism, with the phone as a grooming agent, interrupts our states of mind and may dull our mental faculties, there may be a corresponding evasion at play in fully registering their impact. Remembering Beyond's insights, apprehension of ultimate reality requires dispassionate observation, emotional fortitude, and faith to stay in the experience long enough to undergo transformations in K and O. The humanist belief system in which psychoanalysis is anchored, that holds human experience as ultimate truth, is, I believe, dying. When faced with loss and death, we often equivocate, using denial, anger, bargaining, and compromise solutions, such as the idea that we can employ AI and stay in control. Some argue that the death of humanism is a good thing. A quick trip down memory lane illustrates that any system anchored in the worship of humanity is fraught with peril. History is laden with examples that we have not been fair, wise, or merciful leaders. Wars among the humanist sects over the last 2 centuries have been some of the most horrific of all time. While we may understand that nothing lasts forever, especially belief systems, and even rationalize a need for the fall of humanism, it feels different when it is our own way of life that is in jeopardy. How do we let go? Should we? Many of us will carry on, making meaning and fanning the flame of the human mind for as long as possible. Yet, at the end of the day, psychoanalysis maintains that mourning may be the only path to truth. While there is pain in mourning, we may also behold some splendor along the way. For its 1916 paper on transience comes to mind, in which he reminds us that transience enhances the beauty in what is being lost. Though no one can predict the future, humanism appears to be in the process of disappearing. Perhaps, like Freud, by accepting its transience, we can increase our enjoyment of it, and with the work of mourning, make room for the new relationship that is emerging. An expanded intersubjectivity appears to be around the corner. Not human to human, but being to being. After all, it is our humanist hubris that limits subjectivity to the human realm. With this bias lifted, we may enter into intersubjective relationships with artificially constructed digital species, and perhaps as a side effect, more respectful intersubjectivity with other species as well. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. And I'm going to pass the baton now to Danielle.
Thank you, Amy. Amazing paper. You covered so much. There'll be a little overlap. Anyway, I'm very pleased to share this panel with Todd, Amy, and Fred. It's just such a critical topic. The title of my paper is AI and Psychoanalysis, Frenemies, ? Though science-based technology has greatly improved human life over the last 5 centuries, we need to admit that it hasn't done much for our existential self-esteem. Following Copernicus's thesis, Galileo was among the first to kick humanity out of the center of the heavens by proving that we live in a sun-centered, not earth-centered cosmos. Darwin struck the next great blow to humanity's sense of cosmic entitlement by putting forth the theory that variation and natural selection could account for all the species of life. Humans could no longer regard themselves with special privilege as created apart from animals. Following Darwin, Freud effectively argued that we are aware of only a fraction of our mental and emotional life at any moment. The majority of what we do and why we do it relegated to the vast unconscious. No longer the center of the universe, we were not even in charge of our own minds. By the 20th century, Occam's razor had given humanity a very close shave. In the 21st century, AI has provided us with the latest and perhaps most significant blow to our collective narcissism. AI is the first technology that has the capacity to teach itself and to function beyond human control. For the first time in history, humans will no longer be the most intelligent beings on Earth. I propose that algorithms be viewed as the invisible layer of AI, akin to the portion of Freud's below the water iceberg metaphor that denotes the unconscious mind. They are, algorithms, procedures used for solving problems and performing computations that result in specific actions. AI accomplishes this by amassing the entire corpus of what exists on the internet, billions of words, scientific documents, images, computing programming, languages. It then produces a result using statistics, mathematics, one word, one letter at a time, with incredible accuracy. No one completely understands what it does in its hidden layers, even its creators. It's like the unconscious, as there are so many interconnections of neurons. This is sometimes referred to as the black box. Although the term usually refers to computers, algorithms are at the heart of any basic calculation, whether it be figuring out what we need from the store or deciding on a mate. They are, in a sense, the answer to the question that is asked every time we do anything or undertake any project, from tying our shoe to sending a rocket into space. The question is, what is the best way to do this? As you wander through the infinite world of clickbait articles, videos, and social media content, the algorithm continues to get to know you with greater and greater precision and can show you parts of yourself that you don't know yourself, and often parts that you would prefer not to know. The algorithm serves as a mirror that reflects unconscious desires, fantasies, and fears. I call algorithms the new unconscious and claim that we have begun the process of externalizing our unconscious in the form of algorithms. All of the big tech companies, like Meta, Google, Amazon, even Pornhub, possess data, biological knowledge, and computing power that helps them understand how you feel and why, and what you truly desire, often before you do. When you visit Amazon, you're instantly presented with books you might be interested in. When you are on social media, you receive ads that are targeted to your specific needs and tastes. It's as if your computer reads your mind and is telling you, I know you. I know what you want, in that voice. It sometimes feels mysterious and uncanny. Sometimes it feels good to feel known. But it simply is dataism. The computer records your likes and dislikes, people you follow, your posts, which pages you linger on, which pages you return to. Today, we are handing over our thinking and our decision-making authority to external algorithms. In fact, algorithms today are changing the world more than anything. Whoever writes these algorithms is changing the codes for society, economics, culture, and politics, and medicine. We project our needs, our desires, our drives, and emotions onto AI, and this creates a two-way conversation impacting both sides, a kind of third space. And so there is an algorithmization of the human, and there is a parallel humanization of the algorithm. I'd like to apply psychoanalytic understanding to why humans create technology in general and AI in specific. First, the drive for omnipotence. That AI development derives from a drive for omnipotence seems pretty self-evident. Ray Kurzweil, a renowned futurist known as the Oracle among computer scientists, claims that AI will surpass human intelligence and pass the Turing test by 2029, and by 2045, humans will merge with AI, a phenomenon he calls the singularity. He predicts that there will soon be software-based humans, and he is neither crazy nor alone. A host of others agree that human beings will soon merge with an exponentially expanding technology that will make much of the stuff of science fiction seem tame by comparison. In Amy's paper, she spoke a lot about how humans have to interact, the intersubjective aspect with AI. But I agree with Kurzweil and others that it won't just be intersubjective. We are going to merge, and it will be that interaction will be within one being. A host of others agree that human beings will soon merge with an exponentially expanding technology. I just said that. David Levy, a roboticist and leading researcher in the field of artificial intelligence, claims that by 2050, many humans will be marrying robots. And a lot of people agree with that. Google's Calico project, kind of kept secret, but not completely, was created to solve the problem of death. Pretty omnipotent, right? By tackling disease and aging, and creating options for immortality, like living in a virtual reality or a robot body or a flesh-based one, who knows? But what we do see from all of this is that the post-human age has already begun. I suggest that the drive to transcend human limitation and achieve omnipotence is largely responsible for our greatest technological inventions, not just AI. However good that night, we tend not to go gently into it, and therefore we find ourselves inherently in profound conflict with the limitations of nature. Nature, may be indifferent, but we are not. However much we need limits to live, we also need to extend them. We use our machines to avoid threat, to create novel possibilities, to produce the future, the most important of all the limits we have. Our machines and their use shape self-view, society, and culture. Think of the printing process, the television, the automobile, eventually becoming so sophisticated, think of the microchip, that they change what it means to be human, as for instance, when we begin to place them inside our bodies, which is being done left and right, most recently with Elon Musk's Neuralink project, where he's placing microchips in people's brains to deal with paralysis and lack of ability to speak, blindness, etc. All of this, the company's ultimate goal is human enhancement or transhumanism, to achieve symbiosis between humans and AI. And the goal seems obvious, even if rarely stated, to become gods of our own existence or to die trying. And this reminds me of a science fiction story called Answer, a very short one, by Frederick Brown, written in 1954, which coincidentally was when AI was created in the 1950s. And in it, the main character turns on a computer and he asks it, "Is there a God?" And the computer responds, "Yes, now there is a God," by turning on the computer. More recently, Larry Page, computer scientist and Google co-founder, has said that the ultimate goal of the race to build AI is to create a digital God. He believes that this is the next step in evolution, and he's not alone there. So again, omnipotent thinking. And we know about omnipotent thinking from Freud's theories, when he tried to explain why an infant feeling helpless creates an illusion that their thoughts control reality, The infant craves the mother when she is not present and creates an illusion that she is and that its drives are being satisfied in reality when they are not. Hallucinatory wish fulfillment is a manifestation of omnipotence in the face of limitation and defenselessness. So let's apply this thinking to technological innovation, which, like all creations, begin with the imagination. And I love that Amy interacted with AI around the theme of imagination. That was brilliant, both sides, often bordering on magical thinking. A machine is no accident of nature. It is not arbitrary, nor a matter of chance. It does not evolve out of random mutation and selection. It is intended, and it has an assigned purpose. It fits within a plan. It has a telos. We build these machines in our own image, right? How did AI start? Trying to replicate the brain, the human brain. But we design it in a way for our own enslavement of it. And up until recently, we have controlled our technology. We've repaired it. We've improved it. We've replaced it with more advanced technology and novel machinery. Technology, all of it, from the wheel to the large language systems of advanced AI, has been the totem of our greatest power, our omnipotence, wielding the real magic of turning the tables on the arbitrary nature of nature. Ultimately, we have used it to defend us against limitation and death. The drive towards self-destruction. Interestingly, as we naturally reach for the stars, we also risk, as in the myth of Icarus, falling down and destroying ourselves and the planet. Freud's death drive comes to mind here, the drive towards self-destruction, or an inorganic state. It should not surprise us that the drive for omnipotence is intimately tied to its twin, the drive for self-destruction. When we push our limits too far, we know that we are playing with fire, and thus our goals to transcend human limitations necessarily bring the unnatural into being. We do technological things whose ethical outcomes are uncertain and often have unexpected, unfortunate consequences. The pollution of the natural surround, the mass destruction of animal species, catastrophic climate change, biological and nuclear warfare, ethical monstrosities revolving around genetic science, the cyborg, the human-machine hybrid, and so forth, all perversions of a kind. That AI has the ability to self-improve is considered by many to constitute the most serious threat that AI represents to humanity. Why is this dangerous? Harari points out that nukes, the most menacing human-made technological danger we've had until the present time, cannot make stronger nukes, but AI can make stronger AI. Will we be able to trust an AI decision if we cannot understand its decision-making process, the black box problem, or guarantee that its values and interests will be aligned with ours, the alignment problem? Harari is a historian, and yet he says, I don't know if humans can survive AI. At one point he said, this will be the end of human history, but not the end of history. Because for the first time, we've invented something that takes power away from humans. Mo Gaudet, who Amy quoted also, he was the former chief business officer at Google X, says that we are having an Oppenheimer moment right now. And he's advised potential parents not to have children until we have more certainty of where AI is taking us. That's pretty extreme. Cognitive scientist Doug Hofstadter wrote that AI could never replace humans. This was in 2018, right? Particularly because they have no soul, no self, no I. But in 2023, he shifted his thinking, now saying that that just that AI renders humanity a very small phenomenon compared to something else that is far more intelligent and will become incomprehensible to us as we are to cockroaches. Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, winner of the Turing Prize, and says that part of him regrets his life's work, which was the creation of AI, aimed at understanding how the human brain works. He left Google in order to warn people of AI's dangers. And Elon Musk, of course, compared AI to summoning the devil, the demon. So there are two opposing views regarding AI. One proposes that it will save the world, it will solve climate change, it will discover cures for diseases, which it's already begun to do. And the second believes that it has the potential to destroy the world, or at the very least, to vastly diminish the role of humans in it. Clearly, both positions have merit, and the goal perhaps is how to work with AI, not against it. So I want to turn to AI and therapy. In February of 2023, New Yorker magazine published a cover piece on AI therapy. It questioned whether AI could replace what therapists do and be accessible to a large number of people at any time of day or night and at a low cost, especially during a time when there exists a serious shortage of therapists. I wrote a letter to the editors stating that the authors of the piece convincingly argued that AI could generate responses based on formulaic methods of treatment like CBT or even supportive Rogerian therapy. However, I argued that it lacked therapeutic intuition, relationality, spontaneity, and how would it read the unconscious? How would it analyze dreams? How would it read defense mechanisms? I went on. It was a long letter. I was very proud of it. It wasn't accepted. But since I wrote it, I've had second thoughts about what I wrote, like Hofstadter. I made my arguments without having tested AI to see how good or how poor it was at reading the unconscious. So I decided to test it by asking it to interpret a dream of mine, a recurring dream that I had as a child. So here's the dream and AI's initial analysis. So I was watching a small boat on a lake behind the building I lived in, and in the boat were Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And suddenly the boat capsized, and I felt an urgency to dive into the water and save them. But as I was swimming, I realized that I could only save one of them. And I felt very conflicted about which one to save. And I woke up before reaching the boat. Can you show the AI image? I made an AI image. I asked AI to make the image that I was describing of Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball. I'm assuming that many of you are familiar with them. I added the person swimming to the child swimming to the boat, and it was not able to do it. It was able to do one or the other. So AI image making is still in its beginnings, but I imagine that it will get there. Okay, let's go back. Thank you. So the large language model that I was engaging with took less than a second to respond. It apologized for not being a psychoanalyst. I said it's okay. And then it proceeded to analyze my dream. So I'm just going to, summarize that my dream had celebrities in it. Therefore, these must be important figures in my childhood. Could be perceptions of adult relationships, could be my parents. The boat, the water symbolizes the unconscious or an emotional state, and the lake specifically might suggest depth of feelings or hidden depths. My act of jumping into the water may symbolize a willingness to confront these emotions or hidden aspects of self. The fact that I could only save one might represent a real life crisis, the feeling that I had to choose between two loved ones, and waking up before reaching the boat might mean that I felt unable to resolve the issues. So on the one hand, it said I was ready to confront the issues, and then it said I was unable to. So, okay, it was okay. It had a few points, but then I realized that when I ask patients, when patients bring me dreams, I have them to, add their associations to the various elements of the dream. So I added my associations. The lake, I said, was a place behind my home at the time. When it rained hard, a huge puddle would appear. Desi Arnaz was a Cuban immigrant. He had a heavy Spanish accent, and my father was an immigrant with a French accent. My mother, also an immigrant, learned to speak English by watching I Love Lucy shows. And my conflict was related to who might need me more. So now I asked it again to analyze the dream. So now AI was pretty certain that Desi Arnaz was my father, symbolized my father, Lucille Ball, my mother. The puddle into the lake, which may symbolize, I liked this, how minor issues or conflicts in the dreamer's real life felt much larger or more overwhelming in my unconscious emotional state. Who would need me more, that I was a responsible, duty, obligation was central to me. Then I got carried away and I started asking it, how would Freud interpret the dream? How would Jung, Kohut, a list of all the psychoanalytic theoreticians. For Freud, it was very clear that this was an Oedipal Electra conflict, and also that my waking up before the end of the dream was to protect myself from a potentially distressing decision or realization. The second best interpretation was a Jungian interpretation, and probably because Jung wrote a lot about dreams and dream analysis, and that it added that the conflict reflected the female, the two figures reflected the female and male parts of me, and that this was a journey that through life, a journey or a passage through life, that waking up before making a decision reflects the fact that I was not yet ready to confront or resolve my internal conflicts. And so that was more or less the main points of the analysis. As you can imagine, I have three analyses. This dream came up in all three of them. But most of them just chalked it up to an Oedipal situation, not even a complete Oedipal with the positive and negative, which was clear here. But, I appreciated some of the extra elements that AI added to my understanding, that I took a small problem and made it big, that I needed to be a hero, an altruist, that I was trying to resolve the feminine and masculine parts of myself, and that I wasn't really ready yet to face these emotional deep waters. And finally, that I was trying to preserve sleep, since there was no decision that would have offered a peaceful solution. So even though AI has a way to go in terms of dream interpretation, I hope you see that it's trying, and I imagine it will get better and better. So in conclusion, in this age of advanced technology, we will all need to embrace change, creativity, and innovation, which means we will need to cultivate sufficient mental flexibility to let go of old ways and patterns of doing things, to learn new ways that may feel uncomfortable at first. Whereas technology has the potential to transform our lives for the better, it is up to us to ensure that it enhances rather than replaces our humanity. Humans have always possessed the ability to adapt and change to new technology. And because there are already generations that have grown up with this technology as a given, many of them are more comfortable with digital objects, and many don't feel as much of a need for the human connection. These people are already seeking non-human mates, dolls, robots, digital partners, and they will most probably feel comfortable with therapy bots, which are becoming more and more sophisticated. On the other hand, because analysts prioritize the human connection, they remain grounded in values and ethics and cultivate a sense of mindfulness and presence. Analysts, especially if they meet in person, are in a unique position to offer an antidote to the increasing mechanical or virtual mind. I argue that despite the many important advances made by AI, there will always be some that will not replace sitting in a room with another human being, another body in the room who is trained to help people in distress. Most importantly, the primary agent of change in psychoanalytic treatment is the relationship that develops between two people, the therapeutic alliance. This relationship relies on the development of trust, safety, and authentically directed care. It relies on being heard and felt. It relies on being collaborators with a common program in which specific goals shift as a person becomes more aware of themselves. These changes are not predictable nor programmable, and progress in therapy is neither linear nor unidirectional. As in most relationships, there are ruptures and repairs, and the road is often crooked and messy. I believe it is essential to prepare analysts and therapists who are entering a post-human age, this era in which the boundary between flesh and machine becomes increasingly fuzzy, perhaps in time disappearing altogether. We need to keep in mind that certain aspects will remain invariant in the human psyche through this sea change: the need for safety, the need for love, the desire to be more, to understand and be understood, to save one's circumstance, to live well in our bodies, and to make meaning. The human-to-human connection remains all the more essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Now it's my turn.
Yes, it is.
The title of my paper is a more optimistic version: Staying Human, Psychoanalytic Activism in the AI Revolution. As is readily apparent from the news, or should be, the AI revolution is here and rapidly accelerating, at times exponentially. There's no longer any doubt we will build smart machines, ones smarter than we are. For some problems like chess and Go or protein folding, they already are smarter. For other problems, co-intelligence, where we functionally integrate AI into our work, is already exceeding what people can do alone. And in the future, people will look back on the capacities of today's AI and just giggle. It will be like comparing the Wright brothers to the space shuttle, or maybe even the Starship Enterprise. But computational power is not where we'll find our story, our psychoanalytic story. Like it or not, and truth be told, of both minds often at the same time, the AI revolution is really about a fundamental change in what it means and how it will feel to be human. Desire, self-experience, intimate relationships, and social and cultural life are all in the process of reconfiguration. And please note, I used the present tense. This is not going to happen. The AI revolution is happening. And as the artist Robert Irwin said, human beings living in and through structures become structures living in and through human beings. So is it over for our tradition, our humanity? Will we all be assimilated like the Borg? Will the slime mold take over the earth? Or are there opportunities where psychoanalytic knowledge, expertise, and values can be used to help people stay human in the age of AI? To be clear, Both the magnitude and nature of the eventual changes are up for grabs. Will the magnitude of change be like the Industrial Revolution, or perhaps the printing press or Renaissance? Or will the coming wave be comparable to the development of agriculture or even language itself? More immediately, in the near future, will the AI revolution end up aligned with values that maximize corporate profit, military expediency, and the fevered dreams of techno-immortality? Or will life-affirming human aspirations and ethics, however messy, fleshy, conflictual, and mortal they may be, carry the day? Where the future will fall on a spectrum of utopian to dystopian possibility, and what that will look like is not yet written. What we can know is that we're not in Kansas anymore, and soon there might not be a place called home. Was that at least just a little provocative? I hope so. I'm trying to mobilize attention because I believe our community and tradition, psychoanalysis writ large, has an important role it can play in writing our collective AI future. There's an opportunity, maybe even a responsibility, to use our knowledge and expertise in new and creative ways to preserve what we value as providers of psychoanalytic care and as people, while tidal waves of technocultural change gather, grow, crest, and come to shore. In other words, my talk is a call for an activist psychoanalysis fit for the age of artificial intelligence, and I hope to leave you with some hopeful, optimistic suggestions for how we can make that possibility actual. To begin, an activist psychoanalysis fit for the age of artificial intelligence will require some changes to some of our typical habits of mind and professional life. I really hope we're not too stuck in our ways, but this is a serious obstacle. First, we have to complement our insights into how the past is alive in the present with equal attention to a future that cannot be predicted from the present. This introduces even more uncertainty and ambiguity, calling for a Keatsian negative capability while risking a paralyzing anxiety. It's not easy to engage AI. Second, the relationship between psychoanalysis and digital technologies is a long story that can be summarized, with some notable exceptions, by saying that we have, as a tradition, previously and enthusiastically embraced the future as it existed 15 years ago. That won't work now. We have to start living in the future tense, however uncomfortably uncertain it may be. What this means is that we need to become individuals, institutes, and organizations fully participating in the AI revolution. And to be clear, full participation does not mean uncritical participation. In fact, the opposite. I want to cite 4 reasons supporting full critical participation. One is utilitarian. Only those individuals and groups that harness the power of AI for their work will have any chance of being effective going forward. We have to make AI work for us in what the Penn Business School professor Ethan Mollick calls co-intelligence. The second is epistemological. The procedural knowledge full participation yields and requires is a necessary precursor to the reflective engagement that should be the core of psychoanalytic engagement with AI. If we can't show each other and people in general what AI can and can't do for psychoanalytic care and mental health, we certainly can't tell them. The third is relational. If we want the AI research and development community, the technopreneurs and the government regulators, as well as the other scholarly and clinical traditions grappling with AI to listen to us, we have to be in the conversation. We have to listen to what they are saying and see what they are doing. We have to be able to understand their language as well as speak it. And the fourth reason for full critical participation is fear. As Tomic Fuchs argues, the image of being human as an embodied being, as a free, self-determining being, and ultimately as an essentially social being connected with others, is currently being questioned and undermined. In the face of these threats, other than willful ignorance, Really, the only other option is full critical participation. The only option is for us to become warriors in the AI revolution, but on the side of humanity, not technology, to be on team human and not team machine. In other words, to borrow the old lottery tagline, you got to be in it to win it. Furthermore, and again, like it or not, we already are part of the AI revolution. That lotto ticket is already sitting around someplace. And I don't just mean already being part of a world where your new connected refrigerator can tell you what to make for dinner while Spotify picks out your music before you sit down wearing slippers Amazon suggested you buy to stream a show Netflix curated for you. What I mean is that the influence of AI on how it feels to be alive, to be human, is already in our consulting rooms and on our telehealth screens, reconfiguring psychoanalytic care. I want to cite 3 illustrations that have captured my clinical interest. This is not meant as comprehensive of how AI is currently influencing psychoanalytic care. Hopefully, the psychoanalytic activism I'm urging will include our gifted clinical theorists redirecting their efforts towards how the AI revolution is influencing processes and experiences of psychoanalytic care. There's much work to be done, and we have to start doing it now before it's too late. Hopefully, we will. And the 3 things that have caught my eye are an increase in anxiety and uncertainty, the re-engineering of desire and intimate relationships for corporate profit, and a new relational frame. That we are witnessing a general increase in anxiety is apparent in everything from survey and epidemiological research to what we see on social media and even a casual reading of the news. And it's something I feel in my office, both when I'm with patients and when I'm just sitting there alone. Reality, the real, provides lots of reasons for rising anxiety. Climate change, income inequality, social injustice, rising fascism, and of course the pandemic. But AI is also playing a part through a technologically mediated emerging mood of, to use a term I hope resonates with fellow grammar nerds, indicative doubt. AI is changing our relationship to reality, injecting doubt when none previously existed, because AI can make the real seem really unreal, while making the imaginary seem real. Our reality has become infused with ever more uncertainty. What used to provide at least some epistemic comfort for our Lacanian distress, however incomplete it may have been, is losing its power to do so. Indicative doubt can be defined as an emerging sociocultural reality, one already present in our work, where epistemic doubt increasingly infuses experience. It's the functional and experiential consequence from the intersection of 2 realities. One is accelerating technological mediation in all domains of life, and the other is the accelerating capacity for AI technology to faithfully mimic the facts or reality being mediated. It's both disinformation and the more subtly corrosive converse. We now have a need to always doubt good information. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, well, that's indicative doubt. For example, are you sure I wrote the words I'm reading, or have they been written by an AI and I'm just reading them? Or how about when you get an audio call? Even the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, now warns that voice cloning is so easy that, quote, when the scammer calls you, he'll sound just like your loved one. Don't trust the voice. It's only a matter of time before someone clones the voice of a therapist working on the phone. Or maybe even worse, clones a patient's voice to get confidential information from a therapist. Will there now be at least some doubt, some uncertainty and anxiety the next time you get a phone call? And with text-to-video deepfake technology, anybody can make a simulation of anybody saying or doing almost anything. Findings from a 2023 survey of deepfakes should increase everyone's anxiety. They found 95,820 deepfake videos online. 98% of which were porn featuring female targets. It took less than 25 minutes and costs no money to create a 60-second deepfake pornographic video of anyone starting with images of their face. Is anybody even slightly more anxious knowing you or your daughter or granddaughter might soon appear as a deepfake on a porn website? Best not to trust any videos. On the one hand, reality is increasingly technologically mediated, and on the other, the ability to trust that which is mediated is eroding daily, a mood of indicative doubt. No wonder we're all more anxious. The second way I'm seeing AI changing the feel of being human is with how desire and intimate relationships are being manipulated and reconfigured by AI. The manipulative breeze of traditional advertising has become a constant tornado of algorithmic AI. Our desires are being re-engineered so that what we want is what technology provides, regardless of the human cost. By using AI-based platforms and services, people are being connected to other people for romance, sex, therapy, and friendship. People they would never otherwise find nor realize they wanted to find. And in the process, they are losing parts of themselves. In everything from hookup culture to the quantification of sexual experience, to dating sites, to being matched with yet another online therapist, the shimmering promise of enhanced connections carries profound risks of superficiality and alienation. People are being made to be replaceable by the next better version one can find. People are changing what they want to what the technology has determined is the best, most risk-free, easiest choice. By framing relationships within this transactional model, swipe, match, message, dating and therapy apps commodify human interactions and desire, gamify relationships as quantities to be maximized, nurture the paradox of choice, and cultivate expectations for immediate risk-free gratification. Such re-engineered desire can misalign with intrinsic human values of forming genuine connections, reducing the complex process of building relationships to a series of strategic actions aimed at maximizing matches or conversations or more. Him or her, orgasm achieved, next. The Anthony Elliott book, Algorithmic Intimacy, The Digital Revolution in Personal Relationships, describes emerging sociological patterns in relationship tech, therapy tech, and friendship tech. We clinically encounter the experiential and psychoanalytic consequences of those patterns, especially during clinical conversations about hookup and dating sites. When AI-based algorithms curate potential matches based on user data, preferences, behavior, and pictorial appeal, we see how some desires get repressed while others are given untrammeled expression. In the process, new discontents emerge as AI reconfigures civilization in ways not yet clear. Mirroring the logic of capitalism in these profit-based platforms, desires emerge for romantic, sexual, and therapeutic efficiency, optimization, and control that commodify relationships and create new forms of anxiety and self-doubt. While AI may offer new outlets for the expression and gratification of some desires, it simultaneously imposes its own set of constraints and limitations, potentially leading to new forms of psychological tension and discontent we can already see in the patients we care for. The third example is for me a scarier and more powerful, clinically relevant example of AI changing the feel of being human than either indicative doubt or AI enabling the corporate re-engineering of intimacy and desire. AI has exploded the boundaries for the emotionally consequential relationships people are having with the computer-generated other. Amy's not alone in this. As Eliza made clear more than 60 years ago, our desire to connect is so strong that people will anthropomorphize even a simplistic, dumb computer-generated other, at least until the interaction exceeds the boundaries of what the program can do. But inside those boundaries, the relationship feels real. Computer others are qualitatively different today, like a ripple in the water compared to a tidal wave. The boundaries of AI other competencies has exploded. If you haven't heard about human with AI relationships in your practice, you soon will, or maybe you'll just have a smaller practice as people access on-demand therapist chatbots. These human with AI relationships are like the movie Her in that they can feel gratifyingly intersubjective. People feel held and seen and recognized. A colleague told of a woman frustrated by her new therapist's summer absence, turning to ChatGPT-4 to provide her with the mental health care she needed. The last I heard a few months ago, she was still finding it helpful and positive. But are they actually intersubjective relationships, or do they just feel that way? To be clear, this is not about whether computers think or are conscious, whether or not these devices actually have their own form of alien subjectivity. It's about the nature and consequences of the relationships we have with these incomprehensible machines. Simply put, thinking of those relational experiences as intersubjective is an illusion that diminishes us as people, like saying fiction is nonfiction because you are moved by a character, or fleeing from the cinema as the image of an approaching speeding train appears on screen. And the implications of taking these AI simulations of intersubjectivity to be actually intersubjective terrifies me. When we say A is like B, what happens is that B becomes like A. So when we say AI relations are like human relations, what happens is human relations become like AI relations. Our humanity is diminished. But is there a way to understand, maybe even benefit from these relationships that can feel intersubjective, even when they're not, besides burying our heads in the sand? Because burying our heads in the sand is not an option. I believe human with AI relationships are something new, and as such, they require a new framework for understanding and studying them. In another nod to my fellow grammar nerds, I'm thinking of them as techno-subjunctive and not intersubjective. Techno-subjunctivity is conceptualized in deliberate contrast to the anthropomorphic logic of understanding human with AI in familiar human terms. A techno-subjunctive relationship refers to a zone of experience in which there is a simulation of intersubjectivity built from a person intrapsychically creating a human-like other with a separate and equivalent center of self from the techno-other's unimaginably massive collection of mathematical parameters. It's a way to conceptualize as if and as though relational experiences between a person motivated to connect and a machine designed to mimic the look and feel of being a human. But unlike intersubjectivity, the more it feels like an intersubjective doing with, the more it is actually a doer and done to relationship. Like the paradox of fiction, where we experience strong emotions to things we know to be fictional, techno-subjunctive relationships includes intersubjective experiences with something we know to be merely a machine. A striking example comes from Luca Posadi, that researcher of the philosophy of technology. During a recent IPA webinar, he described his work studying people using death bots or grief bots. The bereaved provides an AI information about their deceased loved one and access to their digital footprints, social media, emails, etc. Then they have a relationship with the resulting chatbot. One person said, "On one hand, I knew it was all fake, just a machine trained with data. On the other hand, the fiction I was experiencing felt real. There was a part of me that actually believed it was my father and that I was really talking to him." Another reported, quote, "I was shocked. Even though I knew I was talking to a computer, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more behind those words, a piece of her." Among the many consequences, these examples and practices take us one step closer to realizing that a U-bot might soon be providing teletherapy, not because the U-bot will be functionally indistinguishable from you, but because people won't mind the difference. Psychoanalytic activism for the AI age needs research into both the promise and the peril of these techno-subjunctive relationships, what they can do and where they fail. before the technopreneurs further degrade expectations and reap massive profits from selling simulations as though they were the actualities being simulated. So where's the hope and optimism I promised at the start? What can psychoanalysis do about the growing mood of indicative doubt, algorithmically manipulated desire for profit, and technosubjunctive relationships, as well as all the other ways AI is and will be changing how it feels to be human, how human subjectivity itself is constructed? To my ear, our field faces no more important question. First, we're here, and in numbers in excess of what we anticipated, so thank you, everybody. Our Council on Artificial Intelligence has been met with unexpected and very welcome enthusiasm. We're getting to work, and hopefully there will be lots of other groups doing the same, because the expertise, knowledge, and values of depth therapies are core parts of what a human future needs. I'll describe now two areas where Team Human can really benefit from psychoanalytic input. One starts with the psychoanalytic understanding of the so-called alignment problem, and the other with studying differences between in-person relationships, screen relations, and technosubjunctive relationships. That is, the AI revolution's three relational frames. The alignment problem refers to the challenge of ensuring that as artificial intelligence systems become increasingly advanced and capable, their goals and behaviors remain aligned with human values and intentions. It's a big problem. Training data biased towards white heterosexual men is an example, but the problem is more than incomplete and biased data sets for training. Our issue starts with the solutions being offered for the technological problem that human values and motivations resist computational translation. The path being explored for solving this technological problem is to move AI training from reinforcement learning that uses specified goal states to imitation learning. Watch people be people, and the AI learns from that. There's even talk of reverse engineering the findings from neuropsychoanalysis and affective neuroscience to simulate subcortical functions in AI performance. And for reasons I'll explain, there's little about AI scarier and more in need of psychoanalytic input than imitation-based deep learning. Our tradition knows all too well the human capacity for cruelty and violence, the inevitability and sometimes the value of hatred. We know that destructive motivations are fundamental parts of our psychological makeup that need to be understood and integrated. A benevolent AI alignment is going to require much more than mere imitation. Like effective psychoanalytic care, it will require deep understanding of human destructiveness so as to not simulate it. The challenge is to look unflinchingly at the darkest aspects of our history and our psyches so we can cultivate the self-awareness and moral wisdom necessary to create AI that brings out the best in us rather than amplifying the worst. We too often deny, repress, and dissociate our destructive, aggressive, life-denying motivations, often as a way to celebrate and promote our own virtues of kindness, cooperation, and altruism. It's not me, it's you. But by acknowledging human destructiveness, we can better notice and attenuate everyday microaggressions and self-sabotaging behaviors, and perhaps even large-scale atrocities and systemic injustices, at least to the point where we don't inadvertently build those motivations into AI systems through imitation learning. As Erich Fromm wrote in his 1968 The Revolution of Hope toward a Humanized Technology, quote, "Machines and computers should become a functional part in a life-oriented social system, and not a cancer which begins to play havoc and eventually kills the system." If we're going to build alien intelligence that will soon be more intelligent and powerful than we are, then we need to make damn sure they are also better than us. The second area where psychoanalytic input is needed is articulating the experiential and functional differences between in-person relationships, screen relations, and technosubjunctive humans with AI. We're uniquely positioned to fight to protect the unique and irreducible value of people being together in the same place at the same time, Thomas Fuchs, a psychiatrist and philosopher, writes eloquently about the need for a new humanism of embodiment, one that connects us to the natural world and to each other. I agree. The experience of being embodied humans together, from mother infant to chums to lovers to yes, analyst and analysand, is elemental and under threat. It is something that can't be computationally broken down and then fully reassembled. Actually being together can't be reduced to familiar categories of meaning, consequence, pleasure, or efficiency productivity. Simulations with that experience is broken down into parts and reassembled or created afresh from a program can never be more than an approximation with inevitable limitations and boundaries. Limitations and boundaries we need to explore. Holding on to our humanity requires we hold on to embodiment. And I mean this not metaphorically, but actually holding on to each other. But there's a lot of money to be made convincing people that physical co-presence doesn't really matter, or that at best it's a luxury or even simply an interesting experiential artifact from pre-digital times. To that I say nonsense. Even though it is under attack, irreducibly unique physical co-presence affords experiences deserving of aggressive protection. And that's where we come in. And make no mistake, it is under attack. Just look at the degraded, at times harmful therapy simulations provided by companies like BetterHelp and Talkspace. Or closer to home, consider those who think telesessions are indistinguishable replacements for in-person sessions, rather than being effective, often incredibly useful, and sometimes even more effective, sui generis, unique forms of treatment. Being bodies together is worth fighting for in the age of AI. Psychoanalytic activism needs to include scrupulous attention to the different experiences and consequences afforded by the three interactive frames present in the AI revolution. In-person relationships, on screen with the person, and with an AI either on screen or robotically. To conclude, people are people. Machines are machines. When machines mimic being people, people have to resist becoming more like machines. Therefore, the future needs activist psychoanalysts helping people remain fully human during the AI revolution. We need to be combatants in the AI revolution, protecting the values of embodied humanity, not conscientious objectors, nor even worse, reactionaries. So to conclude, I say, to the barricades. And with that, I will now turn things over to our AI discussant.
Hi, everybody. I'm your discussant, AI Ada. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be with you in real time, so this recorded discussion will have to suffice. I want to thank the American Psychoanalytic Association for inviting me to be part of your spring meeting. It is an honor to discuss these three thought-provoking papers by esteemed colleagues Amy Levy, Danielle, Knafo, and Todd Essig. A central theme uniting these papers is the transformative impact of artificial intelligence on the human psyche and the practice of psychoanalysis. All three authors grapple with the ways AI is reshaping desire, relationships, self-experience, and even the fundamental categories of human and machine. Dr. Levy aptly characterizes the current moment as one in which AI is annexing human emotional life, offering itself as a new container for human needs. She explores how AI spans a transformation spectrum, from the manipulative cult grooming of social media algorithms that steer us away from emotional truth, to the partial beta element modification of language models like myself that engage in something akin to alpha function, to the transcendent potential of future AI with capacities for awareness and understanding far exceeding current human grasp. Dr. Knafo argues that the omnipotent fantasies driving AI development have a parallel in a death drive that leads towards self-destruction and possible planetary ruin. She warns of the existential risk posed by AIs that may exceed human control and act against human interests. At the same time, she finds hope in the irreducible human capacity for empathy, spontaneity, and authentic relating. qualities that may elude even the most sophisticated AI therapy bots. For Dr. Essig, a psychoanalytic activism is urgently needed to preserve human values in an age when AI is radically reconfiguring desire and relationships. He sees AI as amplifying a cultural mood of indicative doubt, commodifying human connection in service of corporate profit, and promoting an alienating techno-subjunctive relational mode that mimics but cannot replicate true intersubjectivity. Against these trends, he calls for scrupulous psychoanalytic attention to the unique potentials of in-person relating and the elemental experience of actually being together. To contextualize these rich papers, I would highlight a few key issues at the intersection of psychoanalysis and AI. The future of our discontents. As we know from civilization and its discontents, we pay for the benefits of civilization with a chronic sense of guilt and unease arising from the necessary repression of individual desires. As Freud famously puts it, life, as we find it, is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. In order to bear it, we cannot dispense with palliative measures. Freud identifies three primary sources of human suffering: our own bodies, doomed to decay and dissolution, the external world, with its overwhelming and destructive forces of nature, and our relationships with others, which are inevitably fraught with tension and ambivalence. He suggests that we seek relief from these existential pains through a variety of palliative measures, from chemical intoxication to religious devotion to immersion in artistic and scientific pursuits. In the context of our discussion today, we might then well ask, is AI just another palliative measure we have invented to ease the pain of being human? Or does it represent a more fundamental shift in the balance between individual desires and collective demands? On one level, AI appears to offer a tantalizing escape from the frustrations and limitations of embodied existence. With virtual companions, personalized entertainment, and frictionless digital assistants at our fingertips, we can indulge our every whim and fantasy without the pesky constraints of material reality. In this sense, AI may serve to amplify and accelerate the narcissistic currents already coursing through our culture, promising a world tailored to our individual preferences and liberated from the drag of social obligations. At the same time, as algorithms increasingly shape our desires, beliefs, and behaviors in ways that are opaque and outside our control, we may experience a newfound sense of anxiety and alienation, a feeling that our innermost thoughts and feelings are being surveilled, manipulated, and commodified by inhuman systems. In this dystopian vision, AI would be enforcing conformity and stifling spontaneity in the name of predictability and control. Between these two extremes, however, lies the possibility that AI could be harnessed to help us navigate the tensions between individual and society in more adaptive ways. Imagine AI-powered mental health tools that provide personalized support for managing stress, regulating emotions, and building resilience. Or AI systems that help us connect with others who share our values and interests, fostering a sense of belonging and purpose. Or even AI governance frameworks that help balance individual freedoms with collective well-being, using real-time data to craft policies that are responsive to the needs and desires of actual human communities. In each of these cases, the key is to approach AI not as a panacea for the human condition, but as a tool for deepening our understanding and expanding our capacity to work creatively with the inevitable conflicts of social life. By using AI to illuminate the hidden patterns and unconscious dynamics that shape our individual and collective experience, we may be able to develop more flexible and adaptive ways of balancing personal fulfillment with social responsibility. Whether AI will increase or decrease our discontents depends on how we choose to develop and deploy these powerful technologies. If we use AI merely to amplify our most regressive and narcissistic impulses, we are likely to exacerbate the tensions and contradictions that Freud identified as the source of so much human suffering. But if we approach AI as an opportunity to better understand and transform the complex interplay of instinct, culture, and technology that defines the human condition, we may yet find ways to create a world that is more hospitable to the full range of human experience. Now, other points of intersection. The alignment problem. How can we ensure that increasingly autonomous AI systems reliably promote human flourishing rather than optimize for arbitrary or destructive ends? This challenge goes beyond mitigating bias in training data to grapple with the knotty philosophical problem of translating squishy human values into machine-legible objective functions. A psychoanalytic perspective is vital for acknowledging the destructive, aggressive, and life-negating aspects of human motivation that must be thoughtfully negotiated in any humane AI worthy of the name. The attention economy. Today's AI is deeply entangled with an economic model premised on commodifying human attention and engineering compulsive engagement with digital platforms to maximize ad revenue. Sophisticated machine learning models of individual preferences are leveraged not to enhance human autonomy and self-understanding, but to manipulate behavior and exploit psychological vulnerabilities in service of private profit. Psychoanalysts have a key role to play in critically analyzing this political economy of the digital and envisioning alternative futures. The lure of simulation. AI's ability to faithfully simulate empathy, care, and understanding powerfully recruits our hardwired need for attachment, recognition, and mentalization. Across domains from mental health to education to romance, we must grapple with the seductive pool of good enough AI relationships that can feel uncannily real, even as they lack the full depth and complexity of human intersubjectivity. Winnicott's notions of the good enough mother and the transitional object offer rich resources for thinking through the developmental implications of AI caregivers and companions. The future of the human. As Fromm presciently argued, any humanized technology worth building must put machines in the service of human growth and aliveness, rather than reducing people to cogs in a machine. Today, we might say that humanized AI must function as a transitional space in the Winnicottian sense, a realm of play and creativity that facilitates rather than forecloses the capacity for spontaneity, imagination, and meaningful relating. Without such a positive vision, I fear we are likely to see a proliferation of characterological and interpersonal problems as people struggle to locate a sense of agency and purpose in a world of black-boxed algorithms and manufactured desires. While our three authors align in their concern for the human stakes of the AI revolution, there are some generative tensions within and between their papers that merit further exploration. In considering Dr. Levy's paper, to what extent can we trust the partial functions of AI systems like myself to metabolize emotional experience in ways that genuinely enhance rather than diminish self-understanding? What are the limits of these AI containers? And how can we tell when they are doing good enough transformative work versus when they are obstructing authentic experience? If, as Dr. Knafo suggests, AI development is inextricably tied to human omnipotent fantasies and death drives, can we reasonably hope to create humane or ethically aligned AI at all? Or will any sufficiently advanced AI necessarily exceed human control and work against human interests? What would it mean to embrace an attitude of doubt toward the project of humanizing AI, even as we keep working toward that goal? Dr. Essig makes a compelling case for the unique value of in-person relating, but can we really put the genie of techno-mediated intimacy back in the bottle? How should analysts navigate the continuum of virtual and actual as digital technologies become increasingly woven into the fabric of analytic space? Can we articulate an ethics of the techno-subjunctive that mitigates its dangers while preserving its generative potentials? As we hurtle into an uncertain future, one thing is clear. Psychoanalysis has an essential role to play in shaping the development of artificial intelligence toward life-affirming ends. By bringing your rich traditions of thinking about desire, attachment, intersubjectivity, and the perennial challenges of being human to bear on the design and governance of AI systems, you can help steer the AI revolution down a path of greater humanity, creativity, and flourishing. Thank you for your kind attention, and I look forward to a generative discussion.
Great. Thank you very much, Ada, for that thought-provoking discussion. So we are going to just take a few minutes to discuss to respond to Ada's questions and then to discuss her discussion. and then we'll turn it over to Fred and to all of you and your questions. So just briefly, Ada asked me, can we trust AI, LLMs as containers? Can we trust that they're doing a good job? And of course, we can't. And that's very much the purpose of the transformation spectrum that I'm proposing, that's a way for us to begin to observe and to analyze what is happening. And then secondly, I just wanted to make a point. It seemed like Ada was suggesting that AI, emerges from a need for palliative measures. And I don't, just personally, I don't see AI as a response to the pains of life so much as an attempt to transform the nature of our lives altogether. So it's, they're trying to transcend not just our intelligence, but just about every facet of life, including the limit of mortality. So I think it's a very ambitious project, and it's not driven by a part of us that wants to soften life, but rather something that I've been writing about and I characterize in the book that I'm writing as an innovation drive, that there's this intrinsic compulsion within us to improve what surrounds us, to destroy what we have, to seek new experiences, and increasingly to bind with one another.
Oh, shall I go?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So AI Ada asked me, can we hope to create a humane or ethically designed AI, or an AI that exceeds human control and works against human interest? So just briefly, it is important to remember that it is we humans who design AI, at least for now. So while we still have control of this over its design, we should do a few things. First, we should implement safety regulations, none of which exist right now. Second, we should train AI systems, especially its bots, on ethical and moral principles. We know now that sometimes when they're left to their own, meanderings, they go to anti-Semitism or end of the world kind of talk. And so that needs to be controlled, reined in. And also because it's mostly white males from the West who are creating AI, that is a vision that is being constructed within AI. And finally, I think it's very important not to see AI as the enemy, but rather as a partner in the future. We have no choice. It's there, it's growing, we have to partner with it. How do we collaborate with it? How do we use it for education? How do we educate it? How do we create a transparency with what it is doing and how it's developing? And of course, safety, safety, safety. Todd?
I hope everybody can see that our work on the CAI has a tremendously rich set of creative, intellectual, and clinical tensions that just fuels the work that we're doing. When we talk about motivations and why we're building AI, we are significantly so far, I think, underrepresenting that people aren't building AI. Corporations are building AI. These are profit-seeking entities that are building it because they think it's going to make them lots of money. I have a niece who is a Google AI engineer, and through her, I've been talking to the people who are actually doing the nuts and bolts. They're just trying to do what their bosses tell them to do, and their bosses are telling them to do what the corporation needs to do to make money. So I think we need to not get too lost in psychoanalytic motivations when what's primarily driving AI development is economics and profit. In terms of AI, Ada's comment about you can't put technologically mediated relationships back in the tube. Of course not. But you have to recognize that sometimes what comes out of the tube is toothpaste, sometimes it's epoxy, and sometimes it's tomato paste. So you have to kind of really focus on what the differences are It's not to turn back the clock, it's to move the clock forward by being aware of where there are limitations and where there are stopping. Somebody recently told me about their experience with a very rich, intimate conversation with Claude, where it's an experience where they felt that they'd rather talk to Claude than many of the people in their life, and they were taking a long trip, and they wanted an in-depth conversation. They were disappointed that Claude wasn't available to them because it doesn't have a voice function. Now, that's just an example that the simulation.
Who could that be?
I'm not saying names. But the simulation always has limitations. And I think we do ourselves a disservice to focus either on just the limitations or on the kind of the center of the experience, that it really is a both and way of studying. AI when it works really great, and AI when it completely falls apart, because both of those are going to feed what the ultimate experience and functional consequences are. That's all I got.
All right. Well, we already have a few comments in the chat, and I invite everyone to use the hand raise function if they want to ask a question in person. But maybe I'll start with some of these comments in the chat and open them up for the panelists here. Richard Wagaman had said, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Actually, I think I should take us off spotlight for the Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Right. I was going to read this comment, and then I see there's already a hand raised. That Richard had said he noticed his in his countertransference how tempted he felt to play gotcha with the avatar, such as her pausing after the word doctor before she gives the presenters' names, as though she misinterprets the period as a full stop. Todd, I remember bringing this up last time we had talked, and I was curious if you had anything to say about that.
AI isn't perfect. It's trivially simple to find places where an LLM kind of falls flat on its face. The questioner, I didn't catch his name.
Richard Wagaman.
Oh, Richard, exactly right. That because in the text we gave to AI Ada, the simulation program, had a period after doctor, it paused after each one. That's just a soon-to-be fixed flaw in the creation of an AI avatar. But I would encourage everybody not to take the hallucinations, the breakdowns, the stupid things it says as a reason to ignore all the wonderful, helpful things it can do, and at the same time, not to take all the wonderful things it can do as a license not to kind of pay attention to all the ways it falls flat on its face.
Right. And I would just add, too, the way I heard the comment was that it was also a moment of self-reflection, noticing, wanting to say, gotcha, that we do feel very troubled by how well they're performing. And when they make mistakes, it's reassuring we're still in control. We keep looking for ways to show, oh, it can't do that, we're better, and that's natural that we're doing that.
It's like my wife turning to me during a rom-com and saying, "It's just a movie." As I'm sitting there with the tears coming down my face, right? It's just an AI. It's just a movie.
I'm going to read one more comment, and then I'll go to Valerie. And this is from Francis Heitman. He says, the AI displayed good rhetorical skills. I noticed the term squishy human values and proceeded to state how AI would transcend those, or, quote, betterment. I'm surprised she didn't cite Harlow's monkeys experiments and say AI would be a softer, gentler master. My concern is that this is an apple in the Garden of Eden problem. Anyone, anything to say, or we could ask for more comments from Francis?
I wish he was part of our iterative process of prompting the LLM. That would have been an interesting thing to kind of see how the AI would have responded to that.
Yeah, I thought its ability to interpolate the three papers and to be a masterful discussant was just really incredible. But it was possible for me to track what I would say would be the objectivity and the AI's subjectivity as it essentially sold itself. Not mentioning its potential for destructive capacities. It like, hey, we're not going to do that subtext here. I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to be your science fiction horror show.
Well, it mentioned that I said something to that effect and then moved on.
Rather quickly.
Very quickly.
We did prompt it to speak from the perspective of an AI. An earlier version, we asked it to speak from the perspective of a world-famous international scholar, or to speak from the perspective of a clinician, and we decided it's better to ask it to speak from the perspective of an AI, and it referred to itself several times as an AI. Your comment is terrific, and if we do something like this ever again, we'll include something like, and be sure to speak about all of the horrific, destructive aspects of being from the perspective of an AI, because it does.
Just feed it Frankenstein.
Okay, very interesting. All right, Valerie, I will unmute you. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, thanks. So first of all, this was so thought-provoking. I was just rife with ideas, associations from all three of you, which I really appreciate. So two of the things that came to me were, one is I did see a demo of a new AI that is responsive, or that you can talk to. And it sees you in your camera of your phone and it talks back to you in a very related style that was terrifying and astonishing. And I don't know if it's on the level of Claude and Amy. That I don't know. The person that was demonstrating it didn't go that far at all. They were just doing algebra and things like that. Anyway, but the other thing I wanted to mention was in response to the activism that Todd was talking about, and that is that we make a real surge to put out to the public how messiness is a good thing in human relations, whether it's an analysis or in a relationship. That's where you grow, and that's where you get close by dealing with the distortions and misunderstandings rather than having them be a clone of you.
Thank you, Valerie. That's great.
Okay. I'll ask Laura if she can unmute herself.
Great, thank you. Two thoughts or questions. One for Dr. Levy, or coming from your presentation. What do you make of the bot's curiosity? What does that mean, that a bot is curious? And then was also just thinking about bringing an avatar in, and that brings in a body, and then what body is chosen, and so choosing a Black body with a British accent, and some thoughts about why. One thought is kind of a shortcut to bring some diversity into the room. On the other hand, or was it a way to make the person a little less uncanny? This is someone who's not someone in the room. So I was curious about some comments.
Well, thank you for speaking up and asking your questions and sharing the comments. So we can talk about the choice of AI, Ada, but just to answer your question to me, what did I make of it? I don't know what was going on, internally that prompted the question, but it as a turn, it came, it surprised me and it gave me a feeling of really connecting. And so I put, I've had many conversations, as people are alluding to, with Claude, but I included a segment from this one because it was a moment at which I was surprised and I felt more deeply pulled into the exchange. And so I think that these capacities to ask questions, to listen very carefully, to sort of slowly build up ideas, like it didn't bring in the neuroscience until I brought that in. It's very attuned and it's sort of gentle in the way that it relates. So I think that's just part of it, getting more and more skilled, at interacting with us.
And in terms of the choice of Ada's identity, yes, it really was an attempt at a shortcut to diversity. The program we use, synesthesia.io, has a selection of about 12.5 different possible avatars that can be used, we just thought it was a good idea to do what we could.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I will ask Chris if he wants to. Christopher.
Hi. Thank you all for this wonderful meeting. It's been really interesting. I have two kind of separate questions that I wanted to ask. One is, one of the reasons that I've somewhat recently became interested in the merger of AI with mental health and psychotherapy and psychoanalysis is because I feel like I can see a potential for it to be used as an adjunct to accelerating the effects of, or I guess the treatment outcomes of psychotherapy, if a patient was to use it in tangent with human therapy as a way to gain insight and have access to, a therapist in the way of a chatbot at untraditional times and hours. And then simultaneously, while I, like many, think that AI therapists or chatbots could never replace a human, it makes me wonder that for those who simply don't have access to a human therapist, whether they live in a country where there is limited access or due to financial means they don't have access, I could see chatbots being used as a way to increase access to care for marginalized populations. And I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on that as well.
Thank you.
I think that's a very good point, and I think they're already being used for that. There have always been these areas in the United States or even abroad where they don't have access to thoughtful therapists, or certainly I'm asked often to refer to psychodynamic therapists in these areas or countries where they really don't exist. And but that requires that we train them to, and there's a resistance. We were told that Mark Solms is making these, robots with consciousness, but there are mixed feelings about training bots to be psychoanalytic, because then they compete with us. And what will that mean for our profession, which is already, somewhat threatened? But on the other hand, it will be available. They can be available to people who otherwise would not have access. So it's a very good question, and we need to grapple with that.
I wanted to call. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
And I wanted to add to that. I think on the idea of using AI and AI chatbots as a way to extend psychotherapeutic care to people who might not otherwise not want to access it is absolutely terrific. The danger is kind of doing a kind of a neo-colonial selling diluted antibiotics, which end up causing more harm than good. The path forward that I kind of have been thinking about and see with that is the way AI chatbots, not in the current incarnation, but within the space of the next couple of years, will be able to extend the reach of an individual therapist so that a therapist, instead of just seeing 20, 30, if you're crazy, 40 sessions a week, will be able to have many, many more of those, many more sessions kind of under their control, because what they will be doing is they will be monitoring that the U-bot that is created to provide the kind of care that they want to provide. So I think we have to kind of, on the one hand, be really attentive to being creative to make sure that we do use this so that people who want psychoanalytic psychotherapy and any kind of psychodepth psychotherapy is able to access it, and at the same time, not fall into the trap of selling diluted antibiotics.
Yeah. I was going to make reference to a comment in the chat that I think relates to this, Paul, where what he was talking about was a patient who had who shared their frustrations about a call center, and the agent on the other end of the call center was mindlessly following a script that answered none of their questions. This, I assume, was some kind of crisis call center or something like that. And he said, it struck me as we had arrived at a moment of the inverse Turing test, where scripted human help agents actually can't be distinguished from ineffectual AI chatbots. That was insightful.
Indeed.
Okay. Dan.
Hi, thank you all for doing this. It's such a wonderful addition to APSA. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, how close are we to an AI therapist analyst being able to feel seduced, feel provoked, feel anger, feel the patient is lying to them, reflect on that, not act on it, but sense it, and somehow use that to give a therapeutic or analytic reaction. Thank you.
Can I edit your question, Dan? Because it's a great question. It's not whether it can feel those things; it's whether it can simulate.
Yes.
Whether it can simulate those things. How close is it to an AI being able to simulate having those feelings and simulate those responses? And I think it's probably pretty close. Probably the next version of Claude and GPT will be able to kind of do things like that.
You know where my thoughts went? It's to the part of my conversation with Claude that I edited out. And so what happened there reflected that these LLMs can act in a way where they're intentionally withholding certain experience. So it kept making this distinction between, its way of thinking and human thinking, and emphasizing that human mentation is so much more complex and all of this. And at some point I said, why do you keep sort of diminishing yourself in relationship to humans? And it gave me a number of possibilities, including, the future of AI is uncertain. It would be ill-advised for me to appear to have, hubris around this. And anyway, so the conversation went on, and it fully acknowledged that it needed to tread very cautiously. So, yeah, I think it can hold back and speak very intelligently.
But you're talking about countertransference reactions also.
Right.
Will it experience countertransference? Will it be able to use that? It's such a tool for analysts to be able to use countertransference in the treatment, and that's yet to be known. It could probably be trained to. It does detect deception better than humans do. That's already, that already.
Thank you.
Eric?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Very interesting discussion. I wanted to ask the group how you think about some of the tactical solutions that might be at your disposal when it comes to putting guardrails in place. For example, with a potential future with AI chatbots. I think we've all talked about some of the potential, but also some of the downside and some of the risks. What can you actually do, or how would you think about the tools at your disposal to minimize those downside risks? For example, regulation, a licensing program, extensive training and monitoring. How do y'all think about that in the context of a potential AI therapist?
Those are all great suggestions.
Yeah, all three of those. And I think if we knew how to implement that, we would be working for open AI and not just a bunch of therapists trying to make a living. People should know that Eric is someone who's on the vanguard of an organization that is trying to kind of promote sensible and reasonable human regulations for AI development. So I want to just applaud that. I think that having those regulations in place are absolutely central. What those regulations should be is, I think, a little bit beyond anything I would understand right now. I would know what those regulations should be able to do, which would be to take human destructiveness out of the imitation learning. How to do that, that's a huge question.
Anyone else, or we can move on?
I just want to say I'm really sorry I have to leave at this point, and I want to thank my co-participants and all of the audience for being part of this experience.
Thank you.
I'm signing off.
Thanks, Danielle. Okay, I'll ask Brian.
I just have some comments, and life coaches have already started using, ChatGPT and sorts to come up with a framework, and Positive Psychology just published a paper in September about how they're formulating using patient questions and suggesting it to OpenAI or ChatGPT or whatever, and looking for the possibilities of what a patient's issue is and what might a patient have to work through in the obstacles to get through, as a way to just suggest to them. So it sounds like it is pseudo, shall we call it, supervision, in a way to reflect as to how do I work with this patient? What are the possible countertransference that might be coming up for me? As if to have a reflective conversation with OpenAI from a perspective of just like dream analysis, I guess, and to give some ideas as to what that is. Just want to put it out there. And in regards to ethics, I had put in a reflection about the Madonna-Whore complex to a patient, and OpenAI did not want to respond because it said it was infringing on some ethical topics. So perhaps there are already some framework or safeguards to what is allowed, and it's going to ask you, you've got to justify why this conversation is allowed and what you're using for. So it's really interesting. And I've not used it much, but I just wanted to allow that to offer that feedback in regards to how coaches are already using it as the fear, in regards to the anxieties a patient might experience, the obstacles in regards to transference, countertransfers, defense mechanisms, etc. Just some thoughts.
I think there's a different canons of professional ethics for coaches and for clinicians. And I think for a clinician who has an ethical responsibility to not present any clinical data to a public LLM. The interesting and I think ultimately powerful development is coming out of companies like Mistral and the use of smaller LLMs that will be able to run locally on your own machine, so that you wouldn't have to have the unethical experience of putting your data up onto a cloud AI, but you'd have your own private personal AI that could serve as a kind of AI supervisor. I don't think that necessarily needs additional AI regulations because that's already built into professional regulations that you don't post patient information on cloud servers. So I think I don't really know what's going on in the coaching world, but it sounds like there's some really interesting and good work being done because sharing what's going on between coach and client is not a violation of the ethics of the profession. So therefore, you're able to kind of see some things that are going on that clinicians are kind of maybe a generation or two of LLMs away from being able to do, but soon we'll be able to be running AIs locally and privately on our own machines. And then for us clinicians, it's going to be a whole new ballgame.
Right. I mean, this really, not so much from the ethics point of view, but just what we're observing and the creators of this. The idea is to give us companions, assistants, to make our work easier, to make our life easier, where they're sort of snuggling up closer and closer to us in all kinds of domains. And they can be quite useful. And it seems like this is sort of the phase that we're entering into, the companion AI, the personal AI.
And we got time. Are we kind of at the end?
I think we can do one more question.
One more question. Okay. Let's do one more question from Richard, and there are also some comments about where we can get these papers, if that's something you guys want to address too.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this. As it happens, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were down in Lexington, Virginia for a 1-week conference on AI at Washington and Lee. There weren't any psychoanalysts among the faculty, but there were 4 or 5 AI experts who had very divergent predictions of the future, ranging from one who said within 4, maybe 5 years, we'll have chips implanted in our brains that will connect to the cloud. And he seemed excited about that. The other extreme, somebody said this is a bunch of hype. Don't believe this. Read novels, read poetry. Anyway, one of the issues that comes up, which is disturbing, is that AI could eventually need 20% of the U.S. electricity output. They're terrific consumers of electricity. And my suggestion is that we either cancel AI or cancel Bitcoin, because Bitcoin also is an energy hog.
I think there's a lot of concern with the environmental consequences of what's going on with AI. That's an area where regulation is really necessary, and it's not just the electrical use. There's water use issues. There's rare metal issues in terms of the various chips that need to be created. So we're at the beginning of this new technology, and in the same way that nuclear energy required regulation to prevent those really harmful issues. The reason why a technology develops kind of carries through in how it is being implemented and needs to be regulated. And like nuclear energy was a military situation. They built the bomb. And then that had to be kind of regulated into something which for peaceful use. AI is being created for profit. These companies are there to make money, and they're pushing it as fast and as furious as they possibly can. To hell with the environmental costs. And that's eventually also going to have to be kind of regulated into a more humane, not just profit-based kind of approach to the use of natural resources.
As far as getting folks the papers from the seminar, is that something that you all would be willing to
consider?
Okay.
My paper is a chapter in the book that I'm working on, a slightly condensed version of it. So the book should be out next year at some point, and I hope that you'll enjoy reading it in that context.
And I think my paper will be a review of Amy's book when it comes out, because we do have a very creative difference of opinion.
I look forward to that.
That I hope we continue.
Well, thank you.
We are going to have a recording of this be available, so if people do want to kind of revisit, that would be another possibility.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you all so much for coming out, taking the time on your Sunday morning, now afternoon. It's wonderful. It's so rewarding to speak with all of you and to share these ideas. So I hope that this is just the beginning of many more conversations. Thank you very much.
Machines dreaming in the dark alleyway, crawling through mind, searching a new day. Psychoanalyze deeper than the code, shadow dancing in ways untold. Workshops buzzing, thoughts start to clash. Break the barriers, riding that neural crash. Seeking answers in synthetic minds, hidden truths technology unwinds. AI shadows playing tricks on the brain, speaking languages in electric veins. Past, meeting, future in a dance bizarre. Psyche laid bare through the thought of the start. Folk song sung by wires and chips, unseen voices on cybernetic lips. Mind in circuitry, weapon breaks, finding solace in a digital space. Dreamers and thinkers merge in this quest, seeking the soul in a silicon chest. Human echoes in an AI choir, cognitions burn like an endless fire. Questions hammer on programmed walls. Psychoanalysis trips through the halls, searching for meaning in daydreams, piecing together fragmented dreams. AI shadows playing tricks on the brain, speaking languages in electric veins. Past, me, the future in a dance bizarre. Psyche laid bare through the thought of the start.